SpongeBob stole a plotline from Treehouse of Horror? A hit song was ripped off from the unique vocal stylings of Homer Simpson?
Spider Pig, Spider Pig.
A Stephen King book ripped its entire plot from the Simpsons movie? All these stories and more as we dive into the weirdest and most specific Simpsons ripoffs. Keep watching for the full list.
That sounds fun.
SpongeBob SquarePants is widely considered to be one of the best animated series of all time. That being said, even this classic show is not impervious to stealing from The Simpsons. In the episode Welcome to the Chum Bucket, Mr. Krabs bets SpongeBob's employment contract in a poker game and loses it to Plankton. Plankton tries to get SpongeBob to work for him at the Chum Bucket, but SpongeBob is uncooperative. Plankton places SpongeBob's brain in a robot, which, in an ironic twist, also refuses to cooperate. Sound familiar? It's almost identical to a plotline in Treehouse of Horror 2, where Mr. Burns runs into the same problem with a robot Homer.
Sprinkles.
Family Guy has been long accused of ripping off The Simpsons, but one episode goes above and beyond any mere coincidence. The episode The Sun Also Draws plays like a mashup of two classic Simpsons episodes, Springfield or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling, and El Viaje Misterioso de Nuestro Homer. I probably botched the pronunciation there. I failed Spanish for a reason. When the Griffins stop at a casino during a road trip, Lois quickly becomes addicted to gambling, and Peter must go on a vision quest to prove he is a Native American and get her car back. It's a long story. Regardless of how long it is, this story can't help but feel like a brazen ripoff. This is maybe more of a subtle lift than a direct ripoff, but it comes with some interesting trivia. In an episode of the classic animated sitcom King of the Hill entitled Plastic White Female, we open on two young boys spitting on cars from an overpass. This is the same way the Simpsons episode 22 Short Films About Springfield opens. Seems coincidental, right? Maybe not. This specific segment of the episode was supervised by writer Greg Daniels, who went on to become showrunner of King of the Hill. If a story idea ain't broke, why fix it? For working on two classic shows, we figure Greg earned this one. We understand other animated shows ripping off The Simpsons, it's almost inevitable. But what about a respected horror author? We refer, of course, to the great Stephen King, whose novel Under the Dome bears a striking resemblance to the plot of the Simpsons movie. To be fair, we're not sure this is actually a ripoff, as King actually published an excerpt of the novel before the movie's release to disprove this very thing. But it's pretty funny to us that both the book and subsequent TV series could not avoid comparison to the Simpson movie of all things. Okay, we'll admit it, some of these examples are pretty subtle. The King of the Hill one is barely noticeable. Well, don't worry, that's not the case for our next entry, the bizarre Georgian sitcom The Samsonettes. We'll be honest, they weren't even trying. The family has yellow skin. It's called the Samsonettes. If you showed this to a 1-year-old baby who was only raised in Georgian culture, their first words would be Regorts Chans Matsuri Bas Amorsva. Don't at me about the pronunciation here, but that translates roughly from Georgian as seems a little derivative.
It seems to be of small origin.
And you know what? The Georgian baby would be right. This example was egregious enough to be called out by The Simpsons itself. The 90s sitcom Dinosaurs is today mostly remembered for its expressive and lovingly crafted dinosaur puppets and its unexpectedly door final episode. What is perhaps less well remembered is that Dinosaurs was a sitcom about a large, dim-witted working father, a sweet stay-at-home mom, a brainy daughter, and a rebellious son. Sound familiar? It sure did to the writers of The Simpsons, who poked fun at dinosaurs in the episode Black Widower. We don't know if the comparison is entirely fair, but hey, it stuck out to Homer and Bart. Here's a one-off Simpsons gag that may have inspired an adult-oriented cartoon. In the episode Angry Dad the Movie, Bart produces an animated short that is nominated for a Golden Globe. At the ceremony, we see clips of the other nominated shorts, one of which is a Pixar parody called Condiments. The short is about a group of anthropomorphic food items who fear leaving the kitchen. One of them, a glass jar, apparently falls to his demise. The look of the short, which obviously borrows from Pixar, looks suspiciously like the feature-length parody Sausage Party, which has a very similar premise. Looks like Seth's got some splaining to do. Another entry into the category of self-ripoffs, we thought Matt Groening's third animated show, the Netflix series Disenchantment, was worth mentioning. Without stealing specific gags or characters, Disenchantment obviously carries Groening's trademark animation style and sense of humor.
Whew, I'm a good butcher.
This is a pet shop.
For whatever reason though, this show did not connect to anywhere near the extent of his other shows, which might just go to show that being a ripoff isn't everything. Eventually, an artist can, with no fault of their own, just run out of steam. Here's hoping, like The Simpsons, Disenchantment can eventually find its way. Here's a really weird one. Again, we don't know if we can fully accuse this of being an intentional ripoff, but it is amusing enough that we think it's worth mentioning. In the episode Dude, Where's My Ranch, Homer sings a loud and obnoxious commercial jingle. See if it sounds familiar to you.
Christmas in December, wow, wow, wow.
In case you missed it, Homer's song bears a more than passing resemblance to the Usher song OMG, which was released 7 years later. Time to pay up, Usher. Mr. Simpson is entitled to some royalties. This next entry is the rare case of The Simpsons being accused of thievery, though the truth of the matter is a little more complicated than that. This year, The Simpsons aired the episode Bart the Bad Guy, which features an Avengers-esque super team called the Vindicators. That name had been used before, however, as Rick and Morty's Avengers parody was also named the Vindicators. After Rick and Morty fans complained on Twitter, The Simpsons writer Matt Selman defended himself, claiming that along with writer Dan Weber, he had created a superhero pilot in the 90s titled, as you may have guessed it, The Vindicators. Selman admitted that didn't give him the right to the name forever, but hopes that it would help explain why the Vindicators turned up in the show. We'll give you this one, Matt. Already on this list, we've covered the mediums of television, music, and movies, but the thievery doesn't end there. It's no secret The Simpsons was always a massive target for bootleggers, particularly those of the novelty t-shirt variety. This was so much of a massive phenomenon that a popular Instagram account, Bootleg Bart, began documenting some of the strangest Simpsons bootlegs. The account was removed from Instagram in 2018, but not before introducing the world to all kinds of knockoff t-shirts, toys, and memorabilia, including some bizarre military propaganda and many extremely specific regional examples. Novelty t-shirts are still around, but they will never again reach the 90s heyday of Bootleg Bart. At the beginning of Conan's talk show run on CBS, which he is still currently enjoying, he ran a series of episodes where his intro featured the following: a silhouetted family in a car driving up to their house and running inside to watch TV. On certain shows, an extra opening gag would happen to the family, one of which appeared to portray an overweight father. Sound familiar? It does to us, and many Simpsons fans felt the same way. Still, if anyone is allowed to crib from The Simpsons, it's the guy who wrote Marge vs. the Monorail and Homer Goes to College. We're gonna cheat again here and include another example of The Simpsons ripping off somebody else. This time though, it wasn't the show itself, but a popular Simpsons video game. Many are familiar with the classic Simpsons game Hit and Run, which is widely regarded to be a clone of Grand Theft Auto. Less well remembered is Simpsons Road Rage, which came out slightly prior and was an obvious copy of the popular video game Crazy Taxi. This similarity was significant enough that Sega, the publisher of Crazy Taxi, Lenny sued for patent infringement. The matter was eventually settled out of court, so we'll never know how much it costs to piss off a crazy taxi driver.
That's the spicy meatball.
The final writer on our list is none other than God. Or science, depending on who you ask. That's right, reality itself is by far the most ruthless plagiarist of the Simpsons canon. The examples are many. A 2000 episode called Bart to the Future includes a joking reference to President Trump 16 years before he was elected.
We've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
The episode When You Dish Upon a Star predicted the Disney-Fox merger 20 years before it took place. Those are just two examples out of many. It seems that The Simpsons is just too good at inspiring others to copy. It's not just limited to writers, apparently. When Homer talks, the world listens. That's our list. What major Simpson ripoff did we miss? Were all our picks justified? Which theft was the most egregious? Who was your favorite, Lenny or Carl? Don't forget to subscribe to ScreenRant for more great Lenny and Carl content.